Hello, 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 and good evening, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here today. This is Stacey Hines, and we are live tonight for this very special webinar. So, welcome, everybody. Tonight, we are talking about the role of AI in optimizing productivity in business. And I know that sounds like a very techie and business and professional topic, but I'm just here to say if it's AI, it's going to be all fun and just like talking all the things. And I'm excited to welcome as our special guest today, Learie Hercules, aka Herc. And Learie is a special guest because not only is he somebody that I respect in the tech space, but his name, I would say, resonates with innovation, leadership, and transformative solutions in the tech industry in general. And I just want to give a little bit of background about you, Learie, and then we'll get started with our conversation.
Sure.
Learie is really a visionary, and he is the founder of Heft IQ, and he has harnessed the potential of AI to revolutionize the e-commerce sector, delivering advanced analytics and real-time insights that empower brands to achieve unprecedented growth. His work is not just about leveraging technology for the sake of innovation. It's really also about creating meaningful, impactful solutions that drive efficiency, enhance customer experiences, and set new benchmarks in the industry. And today, Learie is going to be joining us to share his insights, his journey with AI, which is one of the things I'm really excited to discuss, actually, and his predictions or thoughts about the future of AI in business. So, welcome, Learie.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Stacey.
Awesome. So, we're going to get started off first and foremost with really getting a sense of your journey in AI. For me, it's a new love affair, but I think you've been around the block a couple times. So maybe start off with just kind of sharing with us where your journey in AI started.
Sure. So without data, there's no AI, and so I have to rewind back to my days of working in big data as part of a AT&T big data division, where we dealt with data volumes in the order of petabytes, and having to build out emerging infrastructure to both store and process data at scale, and then build machine learning models on top of that. And AI is not new, machine learning is not new. If you think about autocomplete, when you do a Google search, that has existed for a long time. You think about spam engines and antiviruses, um, Roomba vacuums. AI is not new, but I think what happened in November 2023 with the launch of Chat, the application on top of a large language model called GPT, really um, lit the world on fire. And so now everyone is paying attention to this new domain, which we really call generative AI.
No, excellent. And I actually like that point that you made that AI is not new.
Yeah,
I think for maybe the techies,
yeah,
especially those who are heavily involved in, as you say, the data space and have been exposed to machine learning and can see AI or ML operating in the background, it is not new to us.
yeah,
But certainly with the dawn of generative AI and the accessibility and ease that it has presented, it really has elevated persons, as you say, attention to the
yeah,
space
yeah,
and has certainly had everybody sitting up in their seats and paying
yeah,
attention where they weren't before.
yeah. And a couple
No.
of factors led to that, right? We had
Mhm,
an evolution of storage, where storage
mhm,
became very cheap. And
mhm,
then we had an evolution of computing power, where we are now leveraging GPUs, graphical processing units, versus
mhm,
CPUs, which typically comes in your laptops and computers, etc.
mm.
And so traditionally, GPUs were used for gaming,
Right.
and then the whole field of deep learning leverage GPU together with some other technologies, transformer technologies, transformer architectures that gave rise to this generative AI domain. That
Mhm.
includes a whole lot of technologies, but um, those sets of technologies are now able to leverage the huge data that is captured
Mhm.
and compute the volume of data at scale in a very small time frame.
Mhm.
So while we grew up in the industrial age where the cost of labor was correlated to the time taken and the level of effort, we're now seeing generative AI compressing the time it takes to get something done as well as the effort to get something done.
Yes, time, effort, and number of people.
Correlated to, yeah,
Which is significant, right?
yeah,
I actually wanted to expand a bit on that and just lean into the conversation about business productivity because the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance is really focused. Well, the membership of that organization is, of course, technology professionals and technology businesses. And I know for many organizations, certainly in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean region, having a tool like generative AI has completely changed the game, especially for those micro and small businesses. So, how would you define the role of artificial intelligence in the context of business productivity?
sure. Business productivity, right? There's the top line revenue, and then there's your cost structure, and then there's your profit margin.
Mhm.
And so when you take a look at um, AI in business, we had to look at those three core value drivers. Top
Mhm.
line revenue, what are the opportunities that exist for us to both expand market share, deliver a better experience to the customer, deliver more features faster at a incremental um, revenue, and how do we both preserve our competitive moat, or if our competitive moat is eroded, create a new competitive moat. And then on the cost structure, how do we deliver the value to the customer faster? How do we understand um, the problem domain at a deeper level to come up with deeper sets of use cases that will drive new revenue or decrease cost? And so when you think about, and when we talk about AI, I don't talk about AI as a tool. I talk about AI as a set of capabilities. And it's a subtle difference because if AI is thought about as a tool, it could generate inertia from business executives and leaders who are trying to understand what this tool is, versus if it's a suite of capabilities, then what does our business do and what capabilities exist to either enhance or create new value streams using the capability. And I'll give you an example. Marketing, right? Typical marketing consists of topic clusters, um, content calendars, short form, long form, search engine optimization, SEO on inbound, and there's outbound. Typically, outbound, you have some type of CRM, for example, like a HubSpot, and you try to take a look at your marketing pipeline, calculate conversions across your pipeline, figure out your ICP, and then figure out some pricing strategies inside of there. Today, you can leverage your data within these applications to get you to insights faster, right? So you can use some data analytics on your HubSpot data, for example. On your content calendar, you can customize and fine tune your prompts and customize an agent or a custom GPT to execute a content calendar and then have another GPT execute the long form based on your own fine tuning of the GPT. And so it's not about, I've seen people use um, the language models as a, okay, let me do a prompt, create an article, and then I'm going to take it with my own personal knowledge and customize the article and then publish it. When in fact, you should be learning prompt engineering, which is the new skill set underpinning most of the generative AI capabilities.
Mm.
And so what I tell executives and what I do in a consultative basis, it's here's a survey, figure out where your pockets of opportunity are in the organization, reskill your employees on prompt engineering, create a governance model around policies for use for chat GPT, GPTs, and large language models, and then understand the workflows that exist within each domain, whether it's marketing, whether it's finance, financial planning and analysis, FP&A. It's ripe for data analysis as well. And whether it's software engineering as well, there's co-pilots that gets us to productivity, etc. So figure out where the pockets of opportunities are and then execute, leveraging the leaders of these functions, ensuring that each leader presents in their quarterly reviews their use of generative AI within their specific functions.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot that you said just now. I'm literally trying to make notes, and at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to come back and watch my own webinar. But you said so many things that are like really great gems for us to unpack. First of all, the context of how you view AI in its utilization in a business and separating it into the three different buckets or even the two primary buckets alone, even just looking at top line and cost structure alone,
Yeah.
creating that distinction would add so much dynamism to how the capabilities are used. And that was the next part that was a total light bulb moment for me where I'm shifting from thinking about it as a tool to a set of capabilities, and they're expansive capabilities, which
Yes.
is the part that really excites me because
Yeah.
every moment I'm hearing about something new that is being released,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
Sora that I'm waiting on,
Yes.
text to video. So that perspective of seeing it as a set of capabilities and then being able to relate to our C-suite leaders through that lens, which
Yes.
is very valuable as compared to the conversation around it being a tool, because you're right. If it's just a tool, we may or may not need to use it. But
Yes.
if it's a set of capabilities, how can we leverage those capabilities to actually deliver value to the customer and
Yes.
ultimately deliver better value to our business?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
really good.
Yeah.
Really good. Okay. So I want to maybe speak at first to how you are using AI inside of your business, and then maybe segue back into just the general conversation. And before I do that, I just wanted to share that we would have seen across the ticker a very exciting update that is coming up for the JTDA, where our AGM is actually happening this week. So this week, Thursday at 6 p.m. at JamPro, members are invited to come out and vote for what will be our new governing body. So I was president of the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance a few years ago. I'm currently in immediate past president role, and this is now another exciting time frame for somebody else to come in and make an impact in this space. And so just exciting times ahead. So I wanted to share that. But now just going back to Learie, I wanted to get maybe a little behind the scenes of how you are utilizing or leveraging AI inside of your organization.
Sure. So I'll kind of walk you through some of the ways we do it across functions, right? So we use Copilot to do peer programming, just software engineering. We use Hugging Face. Hugging Face, if you think about a GitHub host code, Hugging Face hosts machine learning models. So we use Hugging Face and a framework called Streamlit to do a lot of proof of concepts very quickly. So we're able to spin up a proof of concept in a couple hours and demo it. understanding that most people are very visual, right? So we use a lot of proof of concepts with our customers to fine tune use cases. Then on our platform itself, which now I would say it's going to replace Tableau. Tableau is a general reporting tool where you have to hire a data analyst. Um, you have to go to training and be certified, and then you pair them with someone with domain knowledge, and then the two persons try to figure out what they want on the screen and how it should look, and they go through these cycles, daily cycles. And so our platform, we are able to prompt, ask a question, and it auto generates dashboards and insights. So I can, if someone doesn't like how it looks, I can say, hey, use a horizontal bar graph versus a vertical bar graph. And in 2 seconds, it changes the graphic. Right?
Wow.
And so the evolution of prompt engineering and the fact that large language models have reasoning ability. And I think that's something people don't understand. A language model is not a search engine.
Mm-hmm.
So when you type something in ChatGPT, it's not a search engine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a reasoning engine.
That's good.
And the ability to master this reasoning engine is based on language.
Right.
So language is the new programming language, right? We say English is the new programming language, and the mastery of linguistics, right? Because prompt engineering depends on your ability to explain your context.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are trained to give an answer to a question, and they're not trained to ask a question with the full context.
Right. Yes.
And so the prompt engineering, the first thing we did is ensure that we all powered up on prompt engineering. I have another business, Lifelong Learning Labs, where I created a free prompt engineering course for everyone because I'm very invested in ensuring that everyone masters prompt engineering. And then in terms of pricing strategy, we're able to leverage it for pricing. So we create pricing scenarios and pricing tiers, and we use that to come up with pricing strategies. We also use it to come up with our content calendars and content, etc. Right? And then proposals. I have over 20 custom GPTs that I've developed over time. Right?
Yeah.
I have a legal assistant GPT that is able to create partnership agreements as well. And of course, it goes to legal review. But very quickly, partnership agreements, any type of legalese documentation, it spits out a decent working draft of it. And then I send it for legal review. Right? I have coding GPTs as well that are specialized. Yeah, so custom GPTs. I also have a free custom GPT course on Lifelong Learning Labs. It's just the ability to fine tune a GPT for a specific domain, so that you have this agent that is specialized and fine tuned to be leveraged. I also have a governance GPT, right? Create governance policies for board of directors, etc.
Wow. Okay. So, Learie, the more I talk to you, the more I feel like I want to spend like an entire week just deep diving and downloading all of the things that you have in your mind. First of all, I was actually teeing up to ask where we could go become prompt engineers because I have been working on my prompt engineering skills, I would say, since I discovered, since generative AI put Chat GPT forward.
Yeah.
Somewhat obsessively, and my family always jokes about, because they know when I'm interacting with my AI models, they can see me there, kind of having my own conversations, and so I get very involved in it. And I think that you're actually right about language being the new language model, right? It's this is the way that we are going to be coding now, is through the
Yes.
use of language.
Yes.
And the beauty of it is that everybody can do it.
Yes.
it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be like me or probably you, where you go to school and you learn C++ and C, all the different things.
Yeah.
Now you can just, refine the way that you're asking the question. I think
Yeah.
one of the things that has come up quite a bit about AI is the garbage in, garbage out. And therefore, being able to get the results that you are seeking, it really is about, in this instance, asking the
Yeah.
right questions
Yes.
or requesting the right things.
Yes. Yes. Very
So,
much so.
so lifelong learning labs. Can you say a little bit more about that? Because I think this is where the answer came from. I was going to say, well, where do I go to become um, a high level prompt engineer?
Yes. Uh,
And you talked about lifelong learning labs. I see that your lights have gone out. I can still see you ish.
yeah. I haven't. Give me 1 second.
Sure, no problem. And while Leary is working on his getting his lighting back, another exciting update that's happening for the JTDA is, of course, that Women's International Day is coming up next month. And so, Women's Month is what I call March, really. I've dubbed it that because there's just so much that happens in that month that celebrates women. And in March, the JTDA will be celebrating Women's Month by highlighting women in tech. So you want to look out for further details on the members mingle. That is also a component, and as well as Tech Talk Tuesdays, which in March, it's going to be taking place on March 26th, where we will be featuring, of course, either one or more women in tech. So I have also a couple of comments here. I see Dr. Powell saying good evening. Hi, good evening, Dr. Powell. And I have somebody else that is joined us on YouTube that has said that the conversation is interesting. And yes, trust me, I am fully invested in learning more. So as we get back to Leary, let's continue talking. We were at the
Sure.
point where we were going to talk about lifelong learning lab.
Yeah. The company was born from guilt.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had a lot of guilt in January last year and April last year when I saw the capabilities of ChatGPT and just LLMs in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so for me, seeing a technology that is so paradigm shifting and understanding the rate at which work could be displaced
Mm-hmm.
led me to think about what a parent should be doing
Mm.
in raising a child in a world that is going to meet generative AI and robotics,
Wow.
right? If you have an 8-year-old, what are you preparing the 8-year-old, and how are you preparing that 8-year-old to come out into a world that is not the one that exists at this current time,
Yeah. Mm.
right? So, being in tech and building tech over many years, I felt a huge sense of responsibility to help with that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so I wrote a workbook called Lifelong Learning, a
Yeah.
workbook for parents and teachers to raise a child in the age of AI. It's
Mm.
18 chapters with monthly themes and weekly exercises, etc. But it really comes down to ensuring the intellectual curiosity and the learning, that your child becomes a learner. Because what has happened in the industrial age is that we go to school to acquire knowledge, and some people think that the knowledge they've acquired in school is sufficient to take them through life. And that's not the case today.
Not at all.
Because if you've read 100 books, there's more than 100 books an LLM has ingested. So this thing knows more than you, way more than you would ever know.
Mm-hmm.
So now your job is to, on the creative side, understand what are the problems to be solved. How do we
Yeah.
solve the problems? How do we understand the depth of human problems? Right? For example, um, there's a societal construction today, right, around the Industrial Revolution that is built on cost of labor, time, and effort. And time and effort has drastically changes as the two pillars.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does society look like, and what do humans need to do in this thing that they call life? What is it,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you take a look at our parents, the careers were very scripted, jobs were very scripted.
Yep.
You go to school, you get a job, you work, you retire, and beautiful life. That world doesn't exist for us, and it definitely won't exist for our kids. So now, how do we take some time and effort to construct the world as it should be for them, versus waiting to see what the world becomes and they're impacted by it? How about we move to the creation side of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned Sora a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
And what excites me is the ability for people who've traditionally voice have not been heard, because you probably need a big budget to make a movie,
Yes.
now have the capabilities in their hand to tell their own stories.
Yes.
So now West Indian history looks very different.
Mm-hmm.
The ability for us to pass on the messages to our children looks very different.
Yes.
There's decentralization of media and content.
Mm-hmm.
So I see those as capabilities and opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things I want to talk about and ensure that people understand that the technology is not something to be afraid of.
Right.
It's embrace it to do things that you always wanted to do.
Yes. Okay. I want to pause there because I actually want my next question is really going to be about the common misconceptions and some of the challenges that you have observed in working with organizations. But before I do that, I do have a couple of persons asking for the link for lifelong
Sure.
learning lab. So if you could share that, please, we'll make sure that you guys have access to it, and and we can certainly circle back and ensure that all the persons there, I see it, perfect. So that'll be shared in the comments so that you can, if you're watching this live or if you're watching the replay, you'll be able to access the Lifelong Learning Labs website. Okay, let's talk about some of the common misconceptions, especially now that there has been, I would say, a year plus has passed since generative AI has been introduced. And I did a similar talk, I think it was probably March or April last year. And I believe that the misconceptions since then has probably also evolved. What have you been exposed to in your many interactions with the business world?
Sure. Two primary things I would say. The first is hallucinations,
Mm.
right? Um, LLMs hallucinate. Yes, my position is it's a feature, not a bug, because humans also hallucinate, right? And here's an example of how we hallucinate. We tell a child, you can be a doctor. Look at this person. Look at all the things you do. We correlate the things that the kid is doing, and we project into the kid's mind this future image of the kid being a doctor. So we hallucinate and use hallucination as a feature, not a bug, right?
That's good. That's good.
Um, Novels, people write fiction so they can mentally escape into worlds. Those are hallucinations. Those are features. Uh, Brainstorming in the corporate environment. There's unvalidated ideas we throw up on a board that come from the ether. Those are hallucinations. And then we go about validating them. And so I've had to ask certain questions of people. I said, okay, give me some feedback about what you hear about ChatGPT. Well, it's not such a good coder. I said, okay, do you know that? Have you tried it? Nope. So do you just hallucinate it? Right? And it's a function of the mind. Hallucination occurs when you have a lack of information, right? So you have a historical context, you have the present, and you may have gaps, and your mind hallucinates and fills in the gaps.
Right. Okay. Yes. It's like us. It's like the stories that we create in our minds
Yes.
that we end up believing. It's the same thing. It's a belief is really just a thought that you think over and over and over again, and it would be similar with how you're sharing hallucinations there.
Right?
That's fascinating.
And I studied psychology and perception and cognition, etc. Right? And
Hmm.
psychologists has a technique they use called reframing, going back to an experience and looking at it from another dimension and coming forward with a new perception.
Hmm.
So it's a feature.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And how would you suggest people leverage that feature?
Creativity.
Mm.
Um, I've had deep conversations, psychological conversations, linguistic conversations with ChatGPT. Um, and some of them is very difficult to have with other humans.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? And so you'll see the rise of personal assistants,
Hmm.
the ability to get um, another perspective on a
Hmm.
specific personal situation
Yeah.
is going to be huge.
Yeah. No, that's good. Okay. So you talked about there were two primary misconceptions. You said one of them,
And reasoning. Second one is
reasoning.
reasoning.
Okay.
I don't think the majority of the public understand that the LLMs today has reasoning ability, and they test the reasoning ability on LSAT, SATs, etc. Right? And the reasoning ability, I think it's difficult for the people I've interacted with to process because they've spent over 14 years of schooling for them to be able to reason. And reason meaning I have some context and knowledge and I can come up with some conclusion. And you're telling me this thing can reason better than me and understand more things based on my prompting. So it's a little hurdle to get over. And I've spent a lot of time with my family over the last year, and we do some Zoom shares on them prompting and asking and prompting, and because it's not second nature to ask something of this thing. It's
Right.
second nature to ask it last after you've processed and thought about it for a couple of days and you can't figure it out, and then you go ask.
Yes.
So it's
That
more
was
natural.
old me. New
Yeah.
me? Oh my gosh.
so, so it takes some time to work your self-esteem out of that.
Hmm.
So that's what I have experienced. Um,
No, that's excellent. I actually think that the practice of utilizing the tool goes hand in hand with person's everyday exposure. So at work,
yeah.
having it be okay at work, but having that understanding of how to use it at work.
Yes.
At school, having it okay at school. I mean, right now, my kids' school doesn't allow them to use chat. So they'd be home with me, and I'm just like, why are you breaking your brain? Just go to Chat
Yeah.
GPT. And they're like, no, mom, we can't, and it's that this kind of back and forth. And so I'm looking forward to when we are able to normalize the conversation and create some sense of safety with how to leverage the capabilities of the tools that we are given to access this. It's literally like a plethora of insight that we won't ever be able to catch up with again. It's just not possible. The
Yes.
exponential growth of the tech prevents us from being able to catch up with again. And why would we need to? We just need to be able to leverage the capabilities that we now have access to. I wanted to segue into some of the challenges that you see businesses having. So we understand the misconceptions. What are some of the common challenges that businesses have to overcome or maybe experiencing right now in adopting the utilization of artificial intelligence, not just to improve productivity, but also to really see a significant impact to their top line. And in many instances, it may be just cost structure that they want to address. But what are some of the challenges that you see them overcoming?
Companies need a governance policy, an AI governance policy, ASAP.
Mm.
Whether you have one or not, your employees are going to be using it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be using it at home to do some work, etc. So you need to be able to have a AI governance policy in place for the use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Chat GPT and the privacy policy allows them to use your data to train future models unless you select delete your history and now you have no
Right.
histories and no conversations.
Right.
That's the trade-off. Or there's another product, Teams, Chat Teams, where it's a little higher premium payment, but your data is not used in the training of the model.
Mm.
So it's a
Okay.
sandbox environment that you can now, but you need an AI governance policy in place. My intent by the end of this week is to get a template up on Lifelong Learning Labs as well, to help people speed up that process.
Okay.
And then you have to create a learning organization, and it starts at the top. Retaining employees is going to be very tough because the ability for someone to build something is going to be accelerated, right? And so software engineering used to be a competitive moat. It's not so much anymore. Your competitive moat is going to be your knowledge of the space and the customer specifically, and your go-to-market strategy. So as a good friend of mine said, she sees the go-to-market strategy as the new engineering. Right? Shout out to Brittany. Right? She sees go-to-market strategy as the new engineering. Right? So the fundamentals of business has changed, but it starts at the top where the CEO, the board, every company board needs some AI expert on the board. It's very important. And to be able to drive, coach, and translate the capabilities into the opportunities and impact to the existing organization. And then create a learning organization where the CEO and each functional leader, they're infusing the AI capability within their specific domain and ensuring that in the job description and the job evaluation criteria, it bleeds into there as well to ensure that people can have learning paths along
Yes.
certain functional groups to get the company to where they need to be.
Yes. Oh, excellent. I actually, what came to mind just now is the conversation around data cultures and data being a part of the culture. I think based on what you've just said, it really now needs to be AI is a part of the culture, and AI is a part of the strategy, and is embedded in it's literally becoming a part of the DNA.
Yes.
I recently read a New York Times article about AI being the new steam, or
Yes.
the new
Steam
engine
engine. Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, the new power behind the engine for this era. And
Yes.
I loved that perspective and the context for that, because if we are only a year plus into generative AI and there has been so much disruption, I cannot imagine what 3, 4, 5 years from now is going to look like when all the different tech giants and companies that have become tech giants through AI, how we're going to be leveraging the capabilities and what new capabilities are going to be available to us.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting when you were talking about learning organizations, because I believe that's something that has been a need for a long time. And I think in the Caribbean in particular, and I don't know, maybe you've had a different experience, but in my experience, I found that at the top, you don't you have maybe a very small handful. I would say probably 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 leaders are really invested in their own development, where they are going out and intentionally learning. And what I see happening now that AI is present is it's no longer going to be a nice to have.
Yeah.
This is a must in order for you to really survive and add
Yes.
the type of value that is necessary in the C suite or at a senior leadership level.
And I think that has to be the board mandate,
Yes,
right?
that's good.
Um, yeah, the board has a fiduciary duty,
Hmm.
and it has to be the board mandate.
Hmm.
You cannot have a leader who's resting on their laurels because of their qualifications and the years of experience, and not understanding that inertia is a decision, and it
Yeah.
can be a fatal decision. Inertia is a decision.
Hmm.
Doing nothing is a decision,
Yeah.
and that is not a correct decision.
Hmm. No, that's good. Okay. All right. So moving right along, I wanted to touch on how AI applications are addressing data privacy and cybersecurity concerns. And since your journey with artificial intelligence and machine learning started in the space of data, I figure this is an area that you're probably very comfortable in. And we in the Caribbean region are now very heavily inundated by all of the cybersecurity and data privacy laws, as well as breaches. And so I would love to hear just your take on how organizations should be looking towards artificial intelligence to ensure that they are combating these areas or are prepared to address concerns related to these areas.
Yeah, great question. The surface area of attack has increased exponentially with generative AI.
Hmm.
Um, I know for a while the NASDAQ required some cyber expertise on boards,
Hmm.
boards that are listed on their exchange. Companies still don't have the expertise on their boards, which is a problem. That's number one. Number two, when we think about cyber, we think about something from the outside coming in and the threat being outside, when most of the issues involve internal and the internal configuration of systems and the controls around users and user permissions. Right?
Okay.
If you have, let's say you have some SaaS application and someone is the account owner and you have users using the SaaS product, and the account owner saves their password or has a weak password and saves their password somewhere in their Gmail, somewhere in the public, and someone gets a hold of that password, logs in as the admin, deletes all your users, downloads all your data.
Hmm.
What was the root of the problem really? It was an
Hmm.
internal controls problem,
Right.
right? So there's a lot of internal processes and controls that need to be in place. And you need someone with enough technical depth of the issues. You don't need the techie. You need someone who has a good grasp of the issues. If you're a company building product, you need someone with a good grasp of what does a zero trust architecture look like. It's not sufficient to say we have an app and there's a mobile app and there's a web app and we have a database in the back and some that's not sufficient.
Hmm.
What is the architecture? And let's go through a security review of the architecture, right? And so
Hmm.
the expertise has to reside at the board, has to reside at the executive level, and then bleed into all of the controls within each department as well, right? So a data breach could be simple as a company hosts a lot of stuff on-prem, and on-prem systems tend to have a lot of vulnerabilities
Right.
because we're not just patching them as often. And so, what does that process look like? Who's responsible for patching? When there's a vulnerability, What is the escalation process? What is the timeline for patching, etc.? And then, is there some risk register that exists that goes all the way up through the corporate level to the board level that you are aware of and actively working to mitigate, right? So that there's transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see some companies like, yep, we have all our systems on prem, it's cheaper. Okay, let's define what cheap means,
Yes.
right? Cheap to operate? No. Cheap to maintain? No. Cheap to keep secure? No. Cheap to evolve into new product features to roll out to the market? No.
No. Mhm. Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So the leadership really starts at the board and the executive level. And I always say, if your company doesn't have that yet, go get a consultant. Um, get the expertise in quickly.
Mm. Okay. No, great points that you've raised there. And I think the expertise really needs to be holistic at this stage. It
Yes.
has to be somebody that is also able to lean into the understanding of artificial intelligence and its impact in that ecosystem, because it's now it's a wider ecosystem now that we have to pay attention to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Now, when we think about leveraging AI. Earlier, you referenced building agents, talking about custom GPTs. I'm in my agent space now. I've been getting a lot of practice with building out my custom GPTs, and I was excited when the GPT store opened up. I found myself kind of hanging out in there, figuring out which ones to use, and I tend to look for the ones that already have ratings. So that's a tip, guys. If you go into the explore area, look for things that have ratings already, so that you can make sure that you're
And
leaning into the
create some.
yeah, and create some,
Yeah.
and create some,
Yeah.
and create some.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I am curious now about fostering a collaborative kind of office environment where you are leveraging the human workers and AI systems, because that, I believe, is where we're headed to next. I mean, I launched my company full time, went full time in my own business last year, and I had like a ton of employees. And then in the middle of the year, I had to completely shift because of some personal things. And once I started to get really good at leveraging artificial intelligence, it was like, oh, well, I don't need a whole bunch of people anymore. I just need to build out
Yeah.
my AI employees.
Yes.
But how does an organization, or how does a company foster a collaborative environment with human workers and AI systems? Like, how do we even start thinking about that?
Um, so signals,
Mm.
organizational signals. Employees typically signal to leaders that they are hard worker, they're dedicated, right? So people may come in early in the morning, leave late at night, send emails late at night. These are all signals people use, right?
Mhm.
Hey, a lot of meetings, etc. But the fact that you can create a strategy in a few seconds means that you don't need to have a 4 hour brainstorming session,
Right.
right? What you need to do is figure out how can we shift the needle when it comes to delivery of service or product to the customer. What does onboarding a customer look like? What does reaching and converting a customer look like? What does upselling a customer look like? Can I have more sessions with the user to understand new use cases to be solved? These are the other jobs to be done that AI frees you to do.
Mhm.
But if you're an employee who waits for someone to tell you what to do,
Yeah.
you can tell ChatGPT what to do. You can
Yes.
tell the LLM what to do.
Yes.
So if your job consists of instructions,
Mhm.
because that existed in industrial age, here's the list of instructions, then you're going to be at risk.
Mhm.
But if your
Mhm.
job involves, okay, this is how we do things, and I spoke to the customer said, hey, um, could we do this type of onboarding? Why is it so difficult for to get this type of service. Now you're adding additional value to your job. And you can use and leverage the AI to help you execute on that and get to revenue quickly. But the paradigm that we've been programmed with around go to class, do the homework, do the exam. The people who recall and follow the instructions, they get an A. The people who are not so good get a B and a C.
Yeah.
And then you're programmed and you come out into the world of work and you say, hey, tell me what you want me to do. They're going to have problems.
Yes. I would love for you to touch on how you view this through a Caribbean lens, because I straddle both North America and the Caribbean just based on how I grew up, where I started my work life. And I think my concern for the Caribbean region is that we don't tend to take on technology in a very assertive way. I believe we have the opportunity to leapfrog, but I just don't see us taking things on assertively. I don't know what your view is and how you have seen AI adoption in the Caribbean region as probably compared to whether it's Europe or North America or even Africa at this stage. Do you have any insight on that?
Sure, very much so. Most companies have an IT department, right? Information technology and IT grew up in an age where it was the information age. IT's job was to keep systems running. You have the laptop, desktop, the network, internet, what apps do you want installed, etc. IT's job was never to create products.
Mm-hmm.
And and I see it a lot in Middle America. What happens is product, IT is a cost center. Here's your budget, the CIO, and you get your stuff done, your cost. IT does not generate revenue. And then you have companies who create products. And the products are the revenue drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So in these organizations, you have technical people who are wanting to build products. They're in an IT group with a limited budget and constrained by the view that they're there for operations, not to drive revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So that cut to me is what companies need to shift from and understand that even the tech giants have IT groups, but the IT groups don't create the products.
Mm-hmm.
And in the
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean, there are no product groups in a lot of these organizations, and just like a lot of Midwest companies or the middle America companies, there's no product groups. There's IT groups, and you might ask them to write an app, and they write an app, but the thing doesn't scale either, and there's a bunch of security issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? But product engineering is a discipline,
Mm-hmm.
and the discipline of ideation, product roadmap, product architecture, and building a scalable product, extensible product. It's not something under the domain of the expertise of IT.
Yeah.
And so until executives, and I've never worked in IT my entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time first year, first semester, they're like, okay, IT. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this for a living. Hell no. There's nothing to learn here. There's just do this over and there's nothing. No, I'm hell no. Never. So I've always worked for product engineering and building products. And that's what needs to occur with a lot of these organizations. There are people who are product minded, there are people who are close to the customer, you pair them with some technical people and you build product.
Yes. And what would you say is the role of an innovation lab in that spectrum? Because I think what I've seen popping up, and something that I think is a great way to enter that space where product engineering is a lot more inclusive, as opposed to just sitting in marketing or sitting in a product unit. It becomes a much more inclusive process where you're actually able to get even frontline staff contributing to product innovation. have you seen where innovation labs have supported really creating a much more fruitful environment for delivering solutions to the marketplace and moving things out of the traditional work sphere?
Yeah, definitely. I've worked in a lot of organizations and groups like that as well. Like
Mhm,
AT&T Big Data Division was a division carved out
mhm.
to ideate and build data and AI products, right? And I've seen it work. Um, the leadership, again, is important. The word labs is a very tricky word because lab can mean to someone they can sit all day and pontificate and tinkle, and it's a business you're running, right? So I don't even like to use the word like labs in that context, right? And so even the first set of data scientists that we had would did PhD programs, and a PhD you may have 7 years to do something. So the urgency is not there. I'm like, nope, 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 we're running a business. Nope, 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 nope. Right. And so the urgency of that group needs to exceed the urgency of the organization for it to succeed. If it does not, they're going to be seen as sucking up resources and not delivering. So, in setting up that structure, you need someone who can create a sense of urgency by saying, hey, here's the capabilities before us, here's the opportunities, here are the threats from our competitors, and this is what the runway looks like. This is the end of the runway, and create a sense of urgency, and then be able to scope a product that is sufficient in scope to get greater commitment from the leadership to build out a full-fledged product.
Yes, I see a comment here that reminds reminds Chris of when he dropped out of UA after 2 semesters. Like, hell no, I'm not doing this. This is not the work I want to do.
No, I loved UE. No,
Maybe you were doing the right work. Maybe you were in the right track.
yeah, yeah. I did a double major computer science with management and a minor in HR.
Oh,
Um,
when people
yeah,
say
so I
that's
did organizational business, OD, compensation management. So I love the human aspect of things as well as the tech.
mhm. Excellent. All right. So I'm a little sad because we literally have like 2 minutes left in this conversation. I'll definitely be connecting with you after this, Leary, because I think that we can do some amazing work together. At least I hope we can do some amazing work together because I have a couple of projects that I would love to see how you can support.
Sure.
But from a final thoughts perspective, if you were hired today by any organization that is, I mean, clearly all of us have a value chain that we are using to deliver value to the customer and in turn value to our business. If you were hired today and you were supporting an organization in creating their AI strategy, what advice would you give them as a starting point for that?
Sure. Um, Companies experience founding moments.
Mm.
The business model you executed on that got you to this point may not be the business model that takes you to the next level. And so I think most companies today are experiencing a founding moment.
Mm,
A
that's
founding moment, you have to evaluate your premises and assumptions that got
mhm.
where you are today to see if they are still valid, and then reconstruct a new business model going forward.
Okay. No, that's excellent. That's excellent. And I think that that active and intentional reflection is something that I think happens maybe when they're building their strategy, but it doesn't necessarily occur through the lens of, well, we now have a new power source called artificial intelligence.
And it's very easy to miss the things, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft almost missed. They had to invest in OpenAI,
Right.
right? It's very easy. Google was like, oh my God, they missed. They had a red team. Okay, we need to get going now,
Yeah.
right? Google missed the cloud. AWS went ahead,
Yeah.
right? Microsoft missed the cloud.
Yeah.
And then they played catch up. It's very easy to assume that the things that
Mhm.
got you where you are today is the things that are going to sustain you.
Mhm.
And so they um, I think it was Reid Hoffman talked about wartime CEO and peacetime CEO. Now we
Mhm.
need wartime CEO. And a
Mm.
wartime CEO says everything about his business is at risk. And I need to go to war to figure out what do I need to do? What does the landscape look like? And how do we succeed?
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Wow. Okay. I want to thank you, Leary, for sharing so many really great gems. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this again so I can make notes to
Yeah,
share
yeah,
with my people. I do want to remind everyone of the JTDA's annual general election that is happening on Thursday, February 29th at 6 p.m. If you are in Jamaica and you're a member, you can attend at Jampro. And if not, that's fine. You want to investigate becoming a member, please visit us at jtda.org. We definitely want to and welcome you to our membership. So thanks so much, Leary, for all the insights that you shared. And I look forward to hosting you on another Tech Talk because I
sure.
think there is just so much more that we could talk about. As a matter of fact, I would love to have a session just on lifelong learning labs. I think we could talk about just that little bubble there for a minute, and talk about how we can expand and share this very important knowledge that really is going to be a key factor in shaping our future generations.
Yeah. I'm excited about the future.
Yes, as
Yeah.
am I. As
And
am
thank you
I.
for having me, Stacey.
Yes, for sure. Thanks so much for joining us. And thanks everybody for joining us live. And for those of you who are watching the replay, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or comments. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.